Welcome to the Kinship Liverpool podcast or vodcast or vlog or whatever you call it. This is the second episode of the visual version of our podcast. This is going to be looking at the care review. And obviously, as always, if you want to get in touch with us, the easiest way is through Kinship Care Liverpool, the website, through the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. The links are all on there. Obviously, if you are listening to this as the actual podcast, it is available on all of the sites now. It's now all been linked up perfectly. If you go to our website, the Kinship Care Liverpool website, there is now actually a link. There's a special page just for the podcast. So if you are having any problem listening to or listen to the podcast, you can log on, click on there. There's an automatic audio player. Every episode that comes on is on there. When new episodes come on, it comes on. As always, if you do subscribe to the podcast, if you actually do subscribe, anytime an episode launches, which is usually on a Saturday, it will actually pop up on there for you. So you don't have to download it, anything like that. It's always there for you. So I had a few people question about sound last week, or last time, and there's been a few other issues with sound. So I've now employed, I found my mic, which I was given as a birthday present, and I've used it in the past. But we've been moving around and everything else, and our bedroom's been redone, and it's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but I now have it back, so hopefully all the audio issues will be gone, because it's as you can see, it's a much nicer sound. So this is going to be a look at the care review, and I really did want to do a look at the care review, but it's really more to try and keep the momentum going that isn't there. And the reason I'm saying that is, of course, everyone knows everything about the care review and everything, all the things, and nothing's happened. You know, it is really, really sad that they announced the care review. The government made all of these pledges. They've said they're going to put, I think it's like 200 million. I always forget whether it's million or billion. Whichever one it is, it's not enough. I think they've more or less proven that. Someone made a budget of this. So this is over the next 2 years. So let's just say it is 200 million over the next 2 years. So it's 100 million each. And this is supposedly going to cure the massive problems with our care system. And it's not. It's not even going to touch the sides. It is literally just going to. It's going to be as I've said previously on other places, it is a band-aid on a bullet wound, basically. This was such a missed opportunity for this government. Now, I obviously, we're here in Liverpool. If you're watching us everywhere else, I'm not. I don't want to make this political, because it's not. I don't really have enough interest in politics to do that. But here in Liverpool, we're generally a Labour or Liberal constituencies around here. Very rare that you would get a Tory government in. I think there has been some more in the highfalutin parts of Liverpool, but generally Liverpool is either a red or yellow or independent. It's very rare that you'll see a blue here. Not in Everton, but blue. So this could have been the Tories' opportunity to just destroy Labour and say, look, we're going to do this. If you elect us, of course, there's an election, I think it's next year. This could have been their chance to go, boom. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. If you keep us in next year, we're going to carry on the momentum, get this done. These are our pledges. This is what we're going to do. And no, they're not going to do that. They're going to put the bare minimum into this, while also propping up all of these energy companies and everything else. And again, I'm not a political person, so it's not a good thing. That's just it's really sad, because I mean, we had our I think it's every 2 months, 3 months, we have a meeting with the Kinship Care Alliance, and it sounds like the Justice League, doesn't it? We all join together, and there's people from most of the Kinship charities and the Kinship groups and Kinship carers and people like that who all come together. We all talk about what's happening in the world, and obviously our main focus this time was the care review, and it was really sad listening to all the people there. And there were people there. There were Kinship carers obviously talking about what this means to them. There were other people talking about it. And the issue, the real sad part was listening to people try and be positive on something that's really just not enough. And it's really sad because it really, I mean, that's all I can think of is to say sad. I mean, you, I mean, I said on the last one that this was meant to be I was meant to be spoken to by ITN, by the ITV News, and I don't. It's nice to sort of sugarcoat and say, well, okay, it's nice these things that they're doing, but it's not enough. Again, it's a it's the plaster on a bullet wound is the best analogy that we can always come up with, because the fact of the matter is it is the equivalent of going into A&E with a bullet wound and someone giving you a plaster. Yes, it's a nice gesture. And that's the thing I feel like this is. It's a nice gesture, but it's not what's needed. We need the surgery. We need them to go into the nuts and bolts of everything. The biggest issue I had when I was talking about it was that I think personally it was too broad. They just talked about the care system, and if you listen to the parliamentary debates and everything, whenever they mention kinship care, it's always an afterthought. It's always oh, and by the way, in kinship care, and it's always foster carers and kinship carers, but they say it so fast that unless you're looking for that word, I've always thought about it'd be great if we could do something more in regard to branding. It's I don't understand why kinship care is almost looked at as we know about foster care and that's great. We know about adoption, that's brilliant. Kinship care, it's kind of almost like we're not sure what that is. And when you're a kinship carer, it's exactly the same. We don't know what we are. We're not foster carers. We don't adopt. We're not the natural parents. We don't know where we fit. And because of that, I really do think that this is just going to get. I doubt we will see much of this money. It is, from what I can tell, based on the information that's there, it's going to go on. It's going to go on training, which is fine. It's going to go on basically hiring more social workers, which seems to be the main issue. I mean, the real sad thing about the whole thing is when they were talking about it, and I tried to Google the names, and I really do apologize. I can't think what they were called, but there were two really massive cases. And again, I do apologize. I can't remember the names of. It was two. I think it was a boy and a girl who they were young children who they were failed by the social work system. They were neglected by the parents, and eventually they died due to neglect and abuse. But the fact of the matter was, this was like 2, 3. I think one of them was like 4 years ago. So it wasn't even a case. And this is the thing I always hate about government. I mean, I get it that they have to make this right, and they have to make it the right thing to do, and they have to make sure that once it's in place, it's like a solid system. And I get that. But when you say, well, it's taken you nearly 4 years to react to these two, and that's just two, cases out of probably hundreds, probably thousands of cases of neglect and abuse and everything else. And we know the social work. I mean, if you go back to listen to, I did an episode, probably one of the earlier episodes last year about social workers, and I tried to be really down the middle. I tried to be really fair and say, look, the social workers have a terrible job. There are people out there when they say they want to train to be a social worker, and it sounds like they've got the best intentions, and they do. I mean, I've never met a social worker who is literally useless, but when you think of what I want is this, and the social worker will say, well, I've got 90 kids to look after over a 7-day period and I understand that they are overworked, underpaid, understaffed, under everything, basically. They can't do the impossible. It's like anything. It's like teachers. I mean, when people say, oh, this teacher's failing me, they've got 30 kids in a class. They've got to do. I've always saw this analogy of the teachers, whereas a teacher will have 30 children in a class. They will only focus on the top 5% and the top 5. They'll literally focus on the ones that they think can get the A stars and can really excel and go to Oxford and blah blah blah. And they will focus on the 5% that are struggling, that can't spell, that are really struggling, that may have other issues. The rest, the middle section, is basically left to get on with it and hopefully get their C's and B's or whatever it would be. And it's only when they start slipping or excelling that they start becoming, part of the teacher's radar. And that's the same with social workers. That I remember speaking to a social worker a while back, and when I made the same analogy, and they said that's absolutely true. That you will focus on you actually it's kind of a different thing, but they will focus on only that 5% of the ones that are awful. But fortunately, the ones that are just slipping through the gaps are the ones where you go in. One told me a story about how they went into a house, everything was fine, it was all perfect, the house was clean, everything was great. And then one day, but they always went on a particular day. They were told, "Oh, I'm only available on a Thursday." Blah, blah, blah. And then one day they just said, "Right, I'm going to come on a Monday. I'm going to come on a Monday. I'm going to do a spot check. Absolutely find out what's going on." They came on Monday, and the house was an absolute. It was destroyed. There was no food, and literally when they actually confronted the parents, they said, "Well, yeah, we know you're coming on Thursday, and so we make an effort." And then the months, the weeks, the place goes to rack and ruin. The children don't get fed, they don't get clothed, whatever it is. But it's hard to actually do that. You can't spot check people all the time. At the end of the day, if they don't answer the door, you can't just say, well, you can't just make an assumption that, oh, well, they're upstairs doing meth or something like that. You can't make that assumption. You have to basically say, well, I'll have to come back another time. And unfortunately, when you've got 90 kids to look after, you might not have that time. That's the same with the teacher analogy, where they could sort of give a glance at all of these other children and they're all doing fine, but all it takes is one day for this kid to go, well, actually, I've done that. You have one kid who doesn't know what they're doing, and and they slip through the gaps, and then all of a sudden you've got more kids in the bottom, and it's sad. It really is. The biggest issue I have with this care review is, again, it's the fact that nothing has happened. There's been no information about, they've said there's going to be this funding available, it's going to be for training, but they've not made any information, not really, about how we go about it. As I said last time, this document they've released is 224 pages. Now, there are people out there, people part of like the family rights group and other professionals and things like that, who have got the time. I did spend a good chunk of my time over the last couple of weeks reading this document, taking time out to read, and it literally, it was the equivalent of, this could have been an email. This was just so much filler, so much repetitive nonsense, that it really is sad sometimes when you actually think that these are professional. This is a government review. These are professional people that sat around a table and they got it all sorted. And this could have been literally about 10 pages long. Now I understand they have to go through all the bits and pieces, the blah 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 blah. As I say, I think personally, they should have done one for each section of the care sector. There should have been a review for fostering, a review for adoption, a review specifically for social workers, one for kinship carers. By clumping us all together, they will again just focus on the hard areas, the issues that we have, the kids that are actually in care. That's what their main focus will be. If you actually watch the piece they did on ITN, it was all about a child who had left home and was living on the streets and in care. And that's, unfortunately, as a kinship carer, that is not the issue that we have. When we're not dealing with kids who have been left on the street, we're dealing with kids who have been neglected, have been abused, have had parents pass away, unfortunately, and we've had to step in. That doesn't even compare to anything. We're fostering. That's a choice, and I think that's the one thing that people don't really realise about kinship care, is that kinship care very rarely is a choice. There is a choice involved, but fostering is you and your partner or whoever it would be have sat there and thought, you know what, I want a child in my life. And they've gone to an agency and they've probably done a little bit of training or whatever it is. They've made the house perfect. They've got a room set and they've just said, look, I want a child. Maybe they put some parameters. Oh, I'd like a girl. I'd like this. I'd like her to be this age. It's a choice. At any point during that possession, that person could say, well, actually, No, no, I want to go traveling next year, so that's not going to happen. Same with adoption. Adoption is a choice. It is a, sometimes it's due to the fact that they can't have children and things like that, but it is generally a choice. You've made a choice that you want a child in your family, and you've gone, right, I'm going to go up to an agency again, getting the training, getting a room ready, giving parameters. I want a baby, I want a teenager, I want a this, I want a that. But when it comes to kinship care, that's not generally a choice. It is, we have an issue where one of your relatives or one of your friends or a neighbor has a child that's in distress. Can you look after them? And the sad thing with this is that, yes, that's a choice. You can say no, but that's really quite a moral dilemma to put on someone, to say to someone, you have this choice. You can say yes. You can say no. You could say maybe. But it's a moral dilemma, because when you say, well, what will the worst thing in the world is when you ask the question, what happens if I say no? And they don't really have an answer. Usually it's they will go to the extreme, or they'll go into the care system. You'll never see them again. That's the real sad thing. And we were told that many times when we were going through kinship care. And I've heard a lot of people say that they've been told, oh, well, she'll go into the care system, and I hope you didn't have any attachment to this child, because it's likely you'll never see them again. And especially if you're not directly related, you're not a brother, sister, mum, dad, whatever it would be. Obviously, contact is an issue, and that's the one thing that people don't realise, and they do realise, but they don't. Is that I remember I was interviewed a while back by Radio Merseyside as part of a kinship piece, and I said, "Oh, we've had our kid since he was 8 weeks old. Oh, well, he won't know any better." And it's like, well, no, because he knows that he's got a mum, he knows he's got a dad, he sees them because there's contact involved. So, no, it makes it 10 times more difficult. Now, if we were adopting him, if it was a case of we were just complete strangers and we were adopting that child, they didn't get any contact with the mum, that was it, it was gone. She, that'd be fine. We could have easily have said to him, we are your parents, full stop, end of discussion. Now, we can't do that, because he knows that he or she will know that there is a parent there, there's issues, and whether you talk about that, obviously that's life stories and things like that can help with that. But these are things that really do, people don't understand how difficult that is. And again, it's a moral dilemma. At the end of when you think about fostering, yes, it's still a moral dilemma. If you've got a room in your house that's gone empty, it's a moral dilemma of, should you use that to look after a child who would likely be in a care system? And they always paint it like it's Annie or it's Oliver or something. And I've been to a few of them in my life, and they're not me personally, but I mean, I've visited them and had a look and things, and they're not institutional, like jail cells or anything. It's generally like a dorm room. It's like when kids go off to like holidays or camp or anything. It's not nice, and obviously there's issues and everything that goes along with it. But it's not them in a darkened room, being abused or anything like that. Although it does happen, but they do always go to the extreme, and that's the thing that I hate with that. So with the care review, we're almost back at square one. We're asking, how can we apply for these funding? Oh, we'll let you know. Okay, well, when will you let me know? Is this a 2-week thing, 3-week thing? Are we going to be here next year asking this? You've more or less, you've said that there's funding available. When will it become available? Is this they've said, oh, they've pledged this over the next 2 years, but they've not said, is that 2 years from when they announced it? Is that 2 years from a full year? Is it a tax year? What are we talking about? And again, once you start, if you think about, most social workers earn what, 20,000-30,000. When you start saying, well, I think they said they need another 150 of them. Well, that's a good chunk of that money's already gone, and that's a salary that has to get paid every year. So that's a good chunk of that money that's gone. They've got to pay for people to create these training programs. That's not going to be cheap. Then they've got to get people to do it, and then they've got to figure out the getting them done, paying for trainers. Once you start whittling down, it's the old joke, where you say, oh, if you give, when you ask someone, oh, if I give you £1 million, what you do? Within 10 minutes, they've spent it all. They've already they've bought their house and they're left with 50 grand. That's until they start telling us the real nuts and bolts of what's going on with this, we're really still stuck in limbo. It's nice that they've got pledges, but again, unless there's actions behind it. There was a comment on one of I think it was the Instagram, someone put, it's nice that they've got words, but if action doesn't come, that's all there'll be is words. And that's really what I would say at this point, is that until there's a plan of action, until they've said, this is what it's going to be, this is where the money's going to go, this is how you apply for it, and this is who we're going to give it to. Until they do that, it is just simply 220 pieces of paper, which will probably never be read by anyone other than the highfalutin, or the people who really need to read it. And as I say, if you're a kinship carer, if you have any questions about it, please do let us know. We have got sort of, I don't want to say a abridged version, but we got the family rights group, when they went through everything, they've thankfully did like a bullet point, the main points of it. So if you do want to learn more about it, obviously let us know. We can put you, I think it's on their website, but I might put the link on here. But do let us know, and we can certainly get that through. You see how it affects you or your side. Obviously, this is here in Liverpool, we're looking at how it's going to affect us. It is again, it's for the UK as well. That's the thing that people don't really realise. That's 200 million. Whether it's 200 million, 200 billion, it's going to be spread across the entire UK. So it's not really going to stretch that far when you consider that's all the boroughs that will probably ask for it, all the councils and all the authorities and everything else. Once they've all put their hand in the pie, there's really not going to be a lot left. So we shall see. And obviously, once we get some updates and everything, obviously we will always let you know. So this was the next vlog. Vodcast, I think it might be vodcast. I don't know what you would call these type of things. As I say, the audio will be on the podcast as always. If you've got any questions, any comments, please let me know. The email's always there. That's what I'm here for. A big announcement at this point is that I will be coming into Ella Green. So if you, I work a 9-to-5 job at the moment, Monday to Friday, so I don't really get that much time to do that. But I'm going to be there on the 26th. It sounds like I'm announcing a tour. I'm going to be there on the 26th of April. I'm going to be there on the 26th of April. So if you have any questions, have you got forms that you need me to have a look at, please do come along. I really do hope that people do take advantage of this. I can only do it maybe once every couple of months because of the way that my shift patterns work. But please do come along. Say hello, even if it's just to say hello, it's always nice to but if I've had people tell me about they've got problems with phones, and after I've done episodes on screen times and things like that, and they don't know how to put curfews on the phones and things. Please bring them in. I'll I don't want to say I'll sort it out, because at least I'll give it a go, because that's what I'm here for. But please do contact us in any way. If you subscribe, please do share. Like, comment, give 5-star ratings. The more ratings you do, the higher we go up on the charts. We do get quite a few listeners and visitors, which is always nice to hear. And it's always nice that with the podcast, whenever I'm in these meetings with like the Kinship Alliance and things, the first thing they always say is they always listen to the podcast. So that's always nice to hear that there are like regular people who are listening. And I say, if you ever have any comments, questions, any topics that you want me to go through or have a look at or give an opinion on, and as I've said before, if whether it's one of these type of shows or whether it's just a podcast, if you want to be interviewed, if you want to tell your story, tell your side of everything, what you think about Kinship, how it's done, what needs to change, please, let me know. We can try and sort something out. And that goes for Kinship carers, Kinship kids, anyone who wants to be involved, anyone who wants to put something towards it, please let us know. As I was hoping to do something more visual. I think we've got a couple of intergens and things coming up soon here at Liverpool. So once we get all that updated, we'll do that with this. So as always, thank you very much for listening and watching. My name's David, and you'll be listening to the Kinship Care Liverpool podcast or blogcast.